Is there a way I can just take this off of here and hold it? That gives me a little bit of freedom. All right. Again, good morning, and good morning to our live streamers. Yay, we're so glad that you're there. We're so glad you are here. We're experiencing this together. Just take a moment and feel that there is a connection between the people who are at home watching and those of us here. There's a real connection beyond space and time. All right. So, today we are exploring joy, hopefully experiencing joy. We're all about joy today. And even though I think we use the terms interchangeably, joy and happiness, I feel that there's a difference between the two. I feel like happiness is more of a feeling that comes and goes based on circumstances. And joy is more of a state of mind that we choose to allow or not allow, right? And joy is not something that we look forward to in the future. That's more happiness. I'll be happy when I find my perfect mate, when I find my perfect work, when I retire, when I win the lottery, when I win a gold medal. No, those things can bring happiness, right? Temporarily. But joy is a state of being that exists beyond the circumstances. It's a state of being that we experience when we are fully present in the moment. Fully present, not resisting anything. That's the trick. Most of the time, we're in resistance to something, whether it's being in traffic or it's, the leaf blower, neighbor's leaf blower, or it's sitting through all the commercials when you're watching the Olympics, or it's what somebody's saying to you, or it's what you're feeling. There's a lot of things, a lot of areas we can resist spiritually, mentally, physically. But when we can learn to be fully present, fully in the now moment, not resisting anything, that joy is available to us. It's available. It's here. It's right here. It's just a matter of tuning into it. Tuning into the frequency of joy, like the radio station, dialing the dial on a radio station. Most of the time we are tuned into static. We're listening to static. The static of the beliefs of the world, the belief in separation, that we're separate from each other, that we're separate from source. The static of lack and limitation. The static of fear, the static of old mental patterns that create conflict, like we talked about last month. And all the while, radio station WJOY is broadcasting loud and clear 24/7. It's just a matter of tuning into that frequency. The frequency that feeds our soul, that really emanates from our soul. And now, sometimes, if you're like me, sometimes we feel a little guilty for feeling so much joy. It's like, how dare I be filled with so much joy when there's so much suffering in the world, when there's so much injustice in the world? I shouldn't indulge in joy. I should be more focused on the suffering of others so I can do something about it. Anybody? Yeah. So let's talk about that for a minute. See, I think when you really look at it, when we really look at it, how can your refusal to experience joy help anyone else? How can that help anyone else? It can't, right? Actually, the reverse is true. The more that we take care of ourselves and nurture our wholeness, which includes joy, the more access we have to inner resources. That wellspring of energy that allows us to be of service to others, that allows us to make a positive difference in others' lives. And it also gives us access to creativity. It opens up the creative juices within us and allows us to find creative solutions. See, when we're kind of wrapped up in guilt, or we're feeling like I'm not doing enough, or maybe we feel it's being self-centered, that drains our energy. That just drains our energy, and then we're just no good to anyone at that point. It's actually what happens to a lot of people in the helping professions and social justice movements is why they burn out a lot. If they don't learn to carve out that time to nurture their well-being, which includes joy, that can lead to burnout. It can lead to addiction. It can lead to depression. So a meditation teacher and activist, Sharon Salzberg. Anybody heard of Sharon Salzberg? Yeah, a lot of you. She makes a big point of this in her book, Real Change. I think it's Mindfulness to Heal Ourselves in the World. Real Change. Mindfulness to Heal Ourselves in the World. Great book. So she shares stories of these activists from all different kinds of, causes who have had that experience of burnout. And then they have learned techniques to nurture their wholeness by doing things that give them joy. So one man loves bike riding in the country, and he does that as often as possible, goes for a bike ride. Another woman makes sure that she gets up early enough in the morning and she spends time with her wife, doing meditation and practices and reading inspirational material before she goes off to fight the good fight. A lot of people learn to meditate. A lot of people sing. Some people dance. Others connect with nature. She shares about one woman who is a real tree hugger, and she'll take leaves from her favorite trees and put them in her pocket. And throughout the day, she'll take one out and, touch it just to remind her of that connection. Isn't that cool? Some people have spiritual community, like this one, that's positive and affirming and joyous, that they, go to on a regular basis to keep that inspiration going. Salzberg says that this is how we build resilience. This is how we build the resilience of the human spirit. Joy is there, she says. We need to decide to look for it, to make it a priority in our lives. Wow. What if we made joy a priority in our lives? That would be such a shift, a real shift in mindset. Make joy a priority. And speaking of singing, it's what propelled the civil rights movement. They sang as they marched. They sang when they went on protest. They sang all beautiful songs, a whole history, a whole new genre, a whole wonderful, protest songs. Some of them are so beautiful that we still sing today. Ruby Sales, a very well-known civil rights activist who's still an activist today, once said, Without songs, we couldn't have had a movement. It was where we embodied our courage. It's where we embodied our courage. So connecting with joy builds that inner resilience, that inner resource that allows us to go on, allows us to persist through dark times, through difficult times, maybe times such as these. And it seems counterintuitive, doesn't it? But it's really the secret. It's what will get us through. And not only just get us through, but thrive. It's how we thrive. And again, it's how we connect with that limitless wellspring of creativity within us so that we can find creative solutions. And that energy within us so we can use that idea and put it into practice. So, how do we connect with that? How do we connect with that frequency of joy, that radio station WJOY? Well, a good place to start is to approach each day with wonder and enthusiasm. Enthusiasm. We want to wake up every morning and say, what glorious joys are in store for me? What joy can I find today? How can I allow myself to experience more joy? How can I play more? How can I allow myself to play more? That's why being around pets and young children, very helpful, right? It reminds us to play. Reminds us to play. That's what we want to do. Also, cultivating that ability to be fully present in the moment. Looking for things to appreciate. Looking for things to be grateful for. Boy, nothing gets us to joy faster than gratitude. You all know that, right? The more you practice gratitude, suddenly energy shifts and we're feeling lighter and more joyous, and suddenly we can see things around us. It becomes clear. We become clear. We can experience what's there, the joy in the moment. We can see opportunities, that we can take advantage of. It's all that frequency. It's all getting into that frequency of joy. So, Tara Brach, who is the founder and teacher of the Insight Meditation Community in Washington, D.C., who also actually suffers from this rare genetic disorder that makes every movement painful. She said this: "The only way to live is by accepting each minute as an unrepeatable miracle. The only way to live is by accepting each moment as an unrepeatable miracle." Let's turn that into an affirmation together. I accept each moment as the unrepeatable miracle it is. Let's say that together. I accept each moment as the unrepeatable miracle it is. Breathe that in. This moment, right here. An unrepeatable miracle. If if we can wake up every day and feel that and connect with that idea. Now, it's easy when you're, I just spent a week at the beach. It rained the entire time, so it wasn't that glorious. But, this is it. This is the work, right? We got to find the joys. We got to find the thing to connect with and appreciate. And just walking out on the patio in the morning and just seeing the waves crashing in. Oh my God, that moment. So how can I connect with that? How can I keep that awareness with me, that joyous awareness when I am fighting with my daughter, or I am, stressed, or I have to make a decision about what we should do with the COVID thing. There's a lot of stress here these days, How can I remember that that's an unrepeatable miracle too? Because this gives me an opportunity to connect with inner wisdom, creative solutions, to connect with a sense of peace, higher awareness, my highest divine self. If we can remember to just breathe, just take a moment. This is an unrepeatable miracle. Let me open to the joy in this moment, to the beauty and perfection in this moment, to the miracle of this moment. And joy is contagious, right? It's contagious. The more that we kind of tune into that frequency of joy and embrace it, embrace that idea, that spreads faster than the Delta variant, which is saying something. It helps us when we are in that space, when we are vibrating to that frequency of joy. That makes it easier. It's like a vibration, and it radiates out from us, and it makes it easier for others to open to that joy. And they catch it, and then they send it on to others. So before we left for vacation, that week before last that was so hot. It was so hot. Well, our neighbor, I went to walk the dog, and our neighbor had some people who were working on, I think they were repairing the sprinkler or something. They were digging ditches and out there all day in this brutal heat. And there was a guy who was working on the sprinkler, and he had this big wide brim hat on, and he was singing. He was singing these beautiful Spanish songs, and he had a really good voice. And he was boldly, joyously singing these beautiful songs, just filling the whole air with this music. And I was like, that is so great. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that beautiful. That filled me with so much joy as I continued to walk my dog, and I ran into other people who were walking their dogs or just walking, and I had this big smile on my face. How could I not? I was filled with so much joy. And then I passed it to them, and suddenly they had a big smile on their face. And I'm sure, the domino effect of joy, they then spread it to the next person that they passed. And every person who was walking that day was filled with joy, and they had a lift in their spirit, in their consciousness, in their mind, a much better day, all because this guy in the midst of this brutal heat wave was connected to his joy. And he was just singing like, unbelievable. You just never know, how your connection with joy can impact someone else's life, can really impact somebody. You just don't know. That's why it's so important that we cultivate this, that we cultivate this ability to be in the present moment and open to the gratitude that's all around us, open to the joy. And allow ourselves to play, allow ourselves to experience the joy. Because if that can touch somebody else, and then that person then touches somebody else who really needed it that day, and then that touches somebody else, you just don't know. It begins with us, right? We can take that into our practice and say, in this moment, this unrepeatable miracle moment, I'm going to take this practice and open to it and see what incredible joys I can find, I can open to, and I can live, and I can radiate to others. All right? Who's going to experience some joy today? Yeah. We all are. All right. Namaste.